I don't even know where to begin. Can you help me out? Sure, we'll talk about that today on Bible Time. Hello again, everyone, and thank you for joining me for Bible Time. So, you want to start reading the Bible, but you don't know where to begin. Well, the most logical place to begin would be in the beginning. And the very beginning of the Bible, Genesis, talks about in the beginning. The very first verse is, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. But is that really the best place to begin? For some people, yes, it is. You see, there is no right or wrong answer as to where to begin to read the Bible. But for many, starting in the beginning might just be the beginning of the end for you. Because by the time you get to the third book of the Bible, Leviticus, you're going to want to pull your hair out if you've never read the Bible before. There's a lot of sundry laws, mundane, very dry reading. Much of Genesis and parts of Exodus read like a novel, so it's good to start out with. But then you get to Leviticus and you either have to push through or you have to jump around to somewhere else. So I don't really recommend people start at the beginning when they ask me, where do I begin? I often recommend one of two things. I either say, go to the jar, John, Acts, Romans. Those three books, John, Acts, and Romans, are all together in the New Testament with the Gospel of John. Then it leads right into the book of Acts and then into the book of Romans. So you get to learn about Jesus and his life and his miracles and his death and resurrection. And from there, you go straight into the Acts of the Apostles and the beginnings of the early church. From there, you move into Romans, where the guy you learned about in Acts, the Apostle Paul, talks about salvation and many other things in sin in the book of Romans. So that's always a good place to start. But after you read those three books, where do you go? Well, now you got your feet wet, which, by the way, is a saying that comes from the Bible. But now you got your feet wet, you can go pretty much anywhere. You can go to the book of Genesis. You can jump around to wherever you want. But the other thing that I recommend people do sometimes is if they're absolute beginners, I say do a Google search for some of the most popular Bible verses. What does this do for you? It gets you familiar with reading verses in the Bible. You'll read about John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his one and only son. But you'll also read things like Get Your Feet Wet, which is from the book of Joshua. You'll read about Jonah and the whale, Noah's Ark, and some of the other more common stories, but then you might also hear some familiar verses or verses that will become familiar as you continue on your journey with the Lord. And that's things like Ephesians chapter 2, verses 8 and 9. For it is by grace you are saved through faith, and this not of yourself, it is the gift of God. And of course, many of us know 1 Corinthians chapter 13, the love chapter. Love is patient, love is kind, love does not boast. But there are many other well-known verses and popular verses. But when you read this on a Google search, it gets you comfortable with reading the Bible. And then you're ready to jump in and start on your journey. I also recommend that you not try to do it too fast. Don't try to read the Bible in anything less than a year, unless it's like 11 months or something like that. Don't set out to read it in 6 months. It'll overwhelm you if you've never done it before, and it might just cause you to stop. If it takes 3 years to read the Bible, then at least you can say, hey, I read the Bible. It took me 3 years, but that's better than saying, I'm 60 years old and have never read it before. So take as long as you need and stick with it. If you fall off, then force yourself to go back to it. Just continue with it, and before you know it, you will have read the entire Bible. Another important thing is don't expect to know it all right away. You're not setting out to be a Bible scholar. You're setting out to say, I read the Bible all the way through. And even if you don't want to read it all the way through, read it daily. Find a place you can start and just start reading. Find a guide to help you. If you download the app YouVersion, 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 it has many plans that help guide you either in devotional teachings or reading the Bible in a year. Follow these guides and you will be on your way to reading the Bible. And finally, which one do you read? Some Bibles have 1,500 pages or more. Some might only have 800. Some are hard to understand language, like the King James Version, and some are written for modern language, like the NLT, or New Living Translation, and the Message. Some will tell you don't read certain translations because you're never going to get anything out of it because they're transliterations, which means it's not a word-for-word translation. But ask yourself, why am I trying to pick up a Bible? Do I want to be a Bible scholar? Yeah, then maybe go with something like the New American Standard Bible. But if you just want to know more about God and build your relationship with God, stick with the NLT or the Message. They're easy to understand language, and they will get the point across to you in a very good way. I hope this answered some of your questions. I'll be back on this topic again another time, but for right now, that's your Bible time for today. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll talk to you again real soon. God bless. You've just listened to Bible Time. 2 episodes come out every Tuesday and Saturday at 9 a.m. Thank you for listening.